Now, a lot's been going on since my last show here on YouTube, and the biggest thing is taking place in the UK, and it was the Supreme Court ruling, or you could say it was more of a clarification on what is a woman. Yes, and this is very interesting. So without any further ado, we'll get straight into it.
This week. Susan, thanks so much for joining me, not least on Easter Sunday after what I know has been an extremely busy week for you and fellow campaigners. Now, we know what the verdict said. It said that trans women are not women and that biological women are women, and it shouldn't be said otherwise. However, now the interpretation is leading to some disagreements. We've got Baroness Faulkner, the head of the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, saying that that does provide an obligation for organisations to provide single-sex spaces. But then we've got law.
See, this has been going on for at least the last 10 years, both over here and over there in the US. And Trump moved first, or you could say your political, however you define it, group, or yes, say those who didn't quite see eye to eye with the definition of a woman being pushed by the previous administration. So Trump came in, reversed a lot of Biden's executive decisions, particularly the ones to do with funding in schools, and he clearly stated that on a federal level, the definition of a woman is based on your state of your biological genetics at birth. Essentially, a woman is somebody who's born with female parts. Now, it took a little while, but the UK finally caught up, which happened a few days ago.
Sumption, who is quite the authority on the law, saying no, actually it doesn't. It's been overinterpreted. What's your interpretation, Susan?
We think what it means is that anything that is advertised as a space or a service or a facility for women, it has to mean that it's biological women, otherwise it becomes a mixed-sex space. So obviously it doesn't stop people providing mixed-sex facilities, but I think that it would be...
So if you've been following this, you'd know that there's been a lot of issues, particularly with the sports and, you know, biological men, trans females competing against biological women, and it's caused a lot of disagreements. And then in the other arena of public services and female-only spaces, public toilets, gymnasiums. I mean, in some cases, you've had trans women who maybe still look quite a bit like men, racking up in a female gym, for example, and using the female changing rooms to the displeasure of some of the female gym users. Now, when they've gone to complain, they've had the law against them. So in some cases, women have been arrested or, you know, asked to leave the gym because the law says if somebody identifies as a woman, they're entitled to use the female spaces. All of this is now clarified, at least in the UK it is.
Very difficult to argue in practice that you're going to do away with women's spaces, because of course there are some women who would then be unable to participate in public life and they would be able to sue for discrimination based on the Equality Act. So I don't think that in practice they will be able to get that. I know there's been a concern that
it doesn't change some people's lives, but it's a legal clarification, and that's what the women who brought the case to the Supreme Court classify as a big win. Now, there's something to do with the European Courts of Human Rights, which I think is where this argument is going to move to next, because they have a different perspective on these things.
To get rid of women's spaces, but I don't think that could happen in practice.
My girlfriend's mind was blown by the quality of the ingredients in this cleaning product. Herdian Fig is an all-natural counter cleaner that is made from the highest quality essential oils and cleaning surfactants. And the cleaning surfactant
ruling.
Well, as we've been reporting, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is under mounting pressure to make some kind of response to the Supreme Court's decision that the definition of a woman is based on biological sex. Of course, MPs...
There you go. Now, Keir Starmer, he's a bit of a funny one on this because he's the leader of the Labour Party in the UK and the current Prime Minister. Before he won the election, he showed up on quite a few interviews and he was asked this question and he just couldn't answer it. I think one of the remarks he made was 99% of women have male parts. Well, kind of clearly shows his point of view. And I think to a large extent, the Prime Minister and many other politicians, ministers, male and female, have found it very difficult to answer this question in a clear, defined way. And now some of them have done a complete reversal and others are still kind of sitting on the fence for the moment.
Returning to Parliament after the Easter break today, and it'll be PMQs tomorrow.
Trans activists have also vowed to ramp up their demonstrations with at least a dozen rallies reportedly planned across the country next weekend.
Now, on this one, I get the demonstrations, the right to protest. One side kind of gets a win, the other side takes it as an L, and they want to push back. As far as protest goes, though, the argument is based on men transitioning to being able to live as females and being acknowledged in the law. Now, as soon as you bring up that term, female, you kind of at least consider some, female attributes. If you look at some of these protests, I would say they being fairly masculine, asking for people to be unalived, threats against, what they call the TERFs and the, cis women, which is your basic naturally born female. I just think it's a bad look, bad way to argue your side if you come in with, that level of aggression. It just kind of sort of makes it brings to the surface more of a masculine side to the people's personalities rather than the people who are claiming to, feel as though they're fully female, showing a lot of masculine traits.
The scene in London on Saturday. Some trans women are protesting the decision by posting on social media from female toilets. So are female-only spaces now no-go areas for trans women? Discrimination barrister Robin Moira White, who is a trans woman, believes the decision does not automatically ban transgender women from female-only spaces, while fellow discrimination barrister Beth Grossman believes the decision means female-only spaces are now a no-go area for trans women. Right, it seems to me, then, that the Supreme Court ruling hasn't clarified this at all. Beth?
Not fully.
On the contrary,
For some.
The Supreme Court ruling is a model of clarity. It makes it abundantly clear that the definition of biological of sex, of the words male and man and woman under the Equality Act relate to biological sex only, that for the purposes of that act, a man is a biological woman, a woman is a biological female, and if a space is a single-sex space, then it is reserved for biological men or biological female.
OK, so we're using the example of toilets simply to make it absolutely crystal clear. So your position is female toilets are now barred to trans women. So a biologically born male body, but a trans woman would no longer be able to use a woman's toilet.
Yes. Toilets are single-sex spaces. Mm-hmm. A mixed-sex toilet may well exist in certain places, and trans women may go there just as biological males may go there. Mm-hmm. But if a toilet is a single-sex toilet for women only, that space is for biological women.
All right, well, let's come to you, Robin, then. Let's say this Saturday night, you're at your local pub with your friends and you need a pee. Mm-hmm. And there isn't a unisex toilet there. Mm-hmm. There's a gents and there's a ladies. Where are you going to go?
I'm going to use the ladies. And to prevent me from doing so would be unlawful discrimination based on gender reassignment because there is no appropriate space.
What if the manager of the pub, the guy behind the bar, the woman behind the bar points to you and says, no, I'm sorry, I have reason to think that you're a trans woman and you're not allowed to use the ladies?
Then we're into the litigation which I predict that this Supreme Court ruling is going to bring us.
Do you think that they would have the right to ask you if you were a trans woman or not?
Well,
See, I heard this guy talk, and I've watched quite a few of these interviews where they've had both sides stating their position, and this guy was fairly logical, reasonable in his talking points, and you could say optimistic in the way he saw the legal issues being resolved in an everyday practical sense. Some of the other commentators, not so reasonable.
Then we had the Gender Recognition Act because of a case called Goodwin that went to the European Court of Human Rights back in 2002. We weren't given the Gender Recognition Act because of a benevolent government. We were given it because under the convention we had to provide that possibility.
Right.
Now, the significant difficulty with the Supreme Court ruling is that it doesn't address that. And maybe it correctly points out some difficulties with the Equality Act, but what the most significant difficulty is that the UK probably finds itself in breach of its convention obligations under the European Convention of Human Rights.
That's where it's probably going to go to
Robin
next.
says still going to use the women's toilet. But if you're in the women's toilet, do you then challenge Robin? I mean, who do you challenge? And what right have you got to do that? I mean, and equally, you know.
Yeah, you've had stories of butch-looking females in the States being challenged in supermarket toilets because some father has thought, there's a trans woman in the toilet with his female kids or something like that, and he's gone in and turned it into something. There was another case where one of the staff members got sacked, and then she sued the company when she got caught up in an argument in the toilets with, again, a woman who was assumed to be a man, and it got into an argument, and she didn't register it, and the company, the store, would have been liable under the law if they don't record all of these incidents. So it caused a big hoo-ha. She lost her job, and then it was given back to her when there's a lot of pushback on social media. So these things, if not dealt with in a common sense way, there are some issues that they're probably going to lead to. Anywho's, we move on now to GB News, they really
worried about hacks, DDoS attacks, and malware affecting your WordPress site? Kinsta keeps your site safe with top...
But first, joining me now is Susan Smith, the director of For Women Scotland, the group behind that historic court ruling at the Supreme Court this week. Susan, thanks so much for joining.
This weekend, we saw the militant trans mafia in full force. Now it's emerged that top Labour ministers and MPs are plotting to subvert the Supreme Court's ruling that biological men can't be women. And Prime Minister Keir Starmer is too weak and confused to stop them. Leaked WhatsApp messages reveal Labour's Minister for Border Security and Asylum, Dame Angela Eagle, said that they should call a meeting to find a way around the Supreme Court's ruling. Then Chris Bryant, yes, this Chris Bryant.
Prime Minister should make it absolutely clear that if Donald Trump comes to this country, he'll be arrested for inciting religious hatred, and therefore he'd be better off not coming at all.
Yeah, very stable and rational, Chris Bryant. He also happens to be the Minister of State at the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, and the Department...
So there's a few of these, you could say, Labour, those who are to the far left of the party, have got together and they're basically suggesting that they're going to find some political ruling or something to disregard the Supreme Court's conclusion, which I'm not sure that's going to happen. Although, yeah, you've got some left extremists in the Labour Party who are really pushing back hard on this subject.
For culture, media and sport, he backed that meeting. But most shockingly of all, I think, is Steve Race, who is the Labour MP for Exeter. Now, according to numerous different articles, he was listed as an LGBTQ plus MP by Pink News. He seems to think it's appalling that biological men should be banned from women's sports. Well, the truth comes out, doesn't it? The Prime Minister reportedly will do nothing to stop them plotting to continue to allow men in women's toilets, changing rooms and sports. I think that's utterly spineless. And it appears that the Prime Minister might actually be completely beholden.
Now, this ain't going to end anytime soon. It's going to run and run, and it'll probably turn into something else. So for now, we're going to leave it there till a future update. And I just want to take a moment, if you bear with me, to introduce you to today's video sponsor, who are Small Debts. Now, what they do is take all the stress off of your shoulders if you have been ripped off online, if you've been defrauded of your money, or even if you've got a rent deposit that your landlord or estate agent are trying not to pay you back. They'll have your corner and they'll get that sorted and get that money repatriated to your account. So check them out.
To get your security deposit back or dealing with unfair charges? At Small Debts, our tenant advocate service fights to get your money back. No stress, no hassle. Take control today. Visit smalldebts.co.uk and start your case now.
There you go. Simple as that. So I would just like to say, as per usual, be good, be safe, be creative, because myself, Owen Uadier, here at CornerSpeak, are going to leave you to the rest of your day. For now, we out.